Hi, I'm Luca, and at the age of 18, I've already delivered speeches in front of 2,000 people. I've competed in public speaking competitions, I've lost, I've won, I've received standing ovations. People have given me compliments and praise, and they've asked me how I do it. So now I help rising leaders deliver high stakes speeches. And without any further ado, let's get into this video. So, in today's video, I just want to lay the framework for what this whole public speaking system looks like. And I don't expect to go into too much detail and depth into each different phase or each little subheading. Okay, that's not what this video is about. What I want to do is that in the shortest amount of time, I can give you the exact framework and the blueprint of what this all looks like so that when you leave this video, you'll understand exactly the before, the during, and after phase, and that you have some applicable, practical things you can apply to your speaking and speech writing right away. Alrighty. So there are three phases, and I've already dropped my cap. There are three phases to public speaking, delivering a speech, a high stakes speech, uh, a presentation, whatever it is. Step one is the before phase. Okay? Before. This is gathering the ingredients, or if you're a bit more militant, this is getting your ammunition, all right? So you can shoot bullets in phase 2 and 3, which comes later. This now, we want to get our ingredients. And let me just have a little paper where I jotted down a few ideas, which is another tip, but I won't focus on that in this video. With gathering ingredients, it comes to storytelling. All right, with each of my speeches, there's always a story that I tell. And so what's very important is that we always have an arsenal of stories to look at. So when it is time to deliver a speech, to say a story, to present, we know where we can look to. All right. So in order to gather as many stories as we can, we have two habits. The first one is called homework for life. All right. I don't know if you can see that. Homework for life. I got this from Matthew Dix's book, Storyworthy. Homework for life is essentially at the end of your day, when you journal, if you journal. If you don't, that's okay, just stop. At the end of each day, you want to write one simple story in a few words, 2-3 sentences max. And yeah, you're right, not every day is going to have some Pixar, Disney worthy story. Okay, we're not all Tom Cruise. We don't do stunts on the daily. We don't jump off of the Burj Khalifa and parachute like some Fast and Furious kind of thing. So not every day is this extravagant, cool, ballsy scene from a movie. All right. But what we want to do is, even if it's an ordinary, plain, mundane day, like yesterday, for example, for me, it would have just been woke up, went for a walk, picked up a flower, you know, or it can be like on another day, slightly more interesting than that, picked up a flower, granny running behind me. She fell, I helped her up, gave her the flower, made her day. So it's just documenting each day so that at the end of each day, worst case scenario, we have a story. That's the bare minimum. And sometimes it won't be that interesting. Sometimes we'll do something a bit more cool. Played a tennis match, won, shiny trophy. You know, some days will be a bit more interesting than others, but bottom line, we'll have a story from each day. So that eventually, when we go back to our journal, from a year ago, a month ago, a week ago, we'll have a bunch of stories to look at. All right. And that's very important here, because when it's time to go and deliver a speech, we have a whole dialogue, a whole backlog of stories we can look at, right? Because we've documented each one. We have a story we can look at. Oh, okay, this one's kind of boring, doesn't apply to my situation right now. Oh, this one about the flower doesn't apply. Tennis match. Oh yeah, that does apply to greatness is on the other side of, I don't know, pain and suffering or something, whatever the topic is. So we have a bunch of stories to look at. And so that when it is time to say a speech, we've got bullets, we have ammunition, we have ingredients to cook with. all right? And even if we don't, this is a nice habit to have, just to document our life, so that when we grow old one day, we can always open up our journal and just see what happened on a random Tuesday in January 2026. You know what I'm saying? The second habit is called crash and burn. So we have homework for life and crash and burn. It's also a journaling exercise, and how it works, or what it looks like, is for 5, 10, or 15 minutes, whatever you can work with, whatever's, comfortable with you. When you're starting out, 5 minutes is probably the easiest. So let's do that. For 5 minutes, you want to set a timer, and you want to grab yourself a piece of paper. Okay. And for those 5 minutes, you're going to take any thought that comes to your mind, and I mean any thought, and write it down on the piece of paper. And just spit everything that's in here and just vomit it out, eject it like a volcano. Just put everything on this page, all right? And the goal of this, what we want with this exercise is that we don't want any blank, any pause, any moment to think and to structure our idea and whatnot. We want quick, 5 minutes, everything, spit it out here. And how we achieve that is we start off by, talking about some random categories. So let's say numbers first. 1, 2, 3, 3. Oh, I really like the 3 stripes on Adidas. I like Adidas a bit more than Nike, because Nike reminds me of Hypebeast brand and Air Force Max. And then you blank, and you write everything, random stuff, then you blank. And in order, to prevent that, just thinking phase, then we immediately go to another category. Colors, for example. Oh, blue, red, white, green, pink, golden. Golden was the color of that trophy that I won, whatever. Tennis. Oh, then you go to another category once you blank. Then you say sports, for example. Oh, tennis, swimming, soccer. Oh, the Soccer World Cup's coming up. America. Then you can go countries, America. You just want to take everything that's in here, this whole jungle, this jumbled up mess in the psyche. We want to take it all out and spit it on a piece of paper. And so what we've done is we've taken all this information in the mental plane and we've put it in the physical. All right. So that, once the 5, 10, 15 minutes are up, we have a bunch of rubbish on paper now. But then that's much easier to go and look at with a highlighter or whatever you want. You can go and see what is worth talking about, what is potentially story worthy. Okay. So we might have just spoken about a bunch of rubbish like Adidas and Hypebeast brands and whatnot. But then eventually, somewhere there, you mentioned the color golden, and then you mentioned the trophy that you won, and then there you go. There you've just found yourself a story. So that's the whole point. At the end of each day, try and habit stack these two, so when you journal at the end of each day, you can just do these two together. So that's how you get your ingredients. And of course, there are other ways. It's not all about storytelling. You can get other ideas on the message you want to deliver, and maybe the transformation in your story or the realization or something like that. There's different ways to go about this. You can listen to certain frequencies in the dark. You can go for fasted walks. There's many different methods we can use here. But these two, homework for life and story and crash and burn, that's your bread and butter. All right, so if you can just apply these two at the end of each day, you go a whole lot further than anyone who's not doing that. You have a whole lot more stories than anyone who's not doing that. So when it is time to present, to start writing, when you put on the spot to say a speech or deliver a story or anything of that caliber, you have ammunition, you have ingredients to cook with. That's the whole point of that. Now we move on to our second phase, and that is writing. Let me write that down. See what I did there? But this is the writing phase, the cooking phase, the phase where you load your gun with the ammunition you just made. You know what I'm saying? So here we have a structure. At least I have a structure to each and every single one of my speeches or presentations, and anything that I deliver follows a similar structure. And when I've listened to other people speak and other people present, I don't see how this structure, which I'm going to mention now, cannot be applied to their speech and make it better. All right. So let's go into it. If I can just open my marker. Okay. So every single one of my speeches, there's only two phases, two layers to this cake, right? There's one there and there's one there. And we always open it up with storytelling. Always, always, always. Every single presentation I've ever said or delivered starts off with a story. And I've used this in conversations with people, in first impressions. I've used it in interviews. It works. Stories are so overpowered. Like, trust me, dude. If you don't take anything away from this video, just understand, and it's one thing that you remember that storytelling will transform every presentation, every interaction, every interview you have. Storytelling is the difference maker here. Please remember that. And then we go into our message, into our facts, into our study, into our article, into our research. And the way we make all of that bland, mundane, concrete sound like eloquent poetry is through one thing: Roman rhetoric. And I'm going to write that down because it is quite important. Roman rhetoric. This is the structure. We always start off with storytelling, and then we transition into our message. Right? Our message, our study, our article, our fact. And the way we make that sound good, memorable, persuasive, eloquent, is through Roman rhetoric. All right, so I'll explain what each one is. Storytelling. I'm not going to go into the exact framework because this is another video for another day. All right, but there's a basic principle to every story, and that is transformation. There's always a transformation. The way a story ends is almost entirely opposite to how it began. All right, or at least the character going through the story is different. There has to be some form of transformation. In the beginning, you were a chubby, shy, fat kid. At the end, you're this confident, charming, handsome, stud, or anyone, or you get the idea. In the beginning, you're Shrek. At the end, you're Prince Charming, right? There has to be some form of transformation here. That's what a story is. That's what people want. But what they also want is they want to be moved. All right, they want to go on this emotional roller coaster. They want to be moved, right? Because if a story doesn't have a realization at the end of it, if it's just funny humor, and at the end, there's no transformation, there's no realization, your audience is left stationary and they have not been moved. And that's okay. You gave them a good time. You were entertaining, but you weren't a good speaker. All right? And they're going to forget about you as soon as you get off the stage. In order to be remembered, in order to persuade, in order to be somewhat charismatic, you need to move your audience. You need to take them on this emotional roller coaster. And the way we do that is by combining transformation with your realization. And the way we highlight the realization is through contrasting humor with deepness, whatever you want to call it. Humor with a bit of sadness, or I think deepness is the right word here, because let me tell you what this looks like. Every story, the good stories, which I've heard, they're quite unexpected. And the best stories I've told with the best impact on the audience, all unexpected endings. And what I mean by that is throughout the entire story, I'm charming, I'm laughing, I'm smiling, my body language is open, I'm making jokes, everyone's laughing, it's amazing, right? It's brilliant. And at the end of it, at the end of each story, there's always a moment of somewhat silence. And I say this line. And in that moment, I realize. And everything that follows that line, in that moment, I realize. That's all the deep. That's your realization that moves you, that moves the audience, that transforms you. All right. For example, Matthew Dix, in his story, he gets into a car accident and he's in hospital and his family isn't there. They go and check if the car's okay instead of seeing if he's all right. But all his friends come to the hospital to see him. And he says, in that moment, I realize that those friends of mine in the hospital room were the only family I need. And that sounds good. And that's deep. But what makes it stick is the entire story before that, it was just humor. It was a comedy show. It was amazing. It was brilliant. It was funny. And so that's what we're doing here. We're contrasting humor with a deep realization at the end. And that's what makes stories good. You always want to make them laugh before you make them cry. And it's kind of like, I'm not a boxer here. You'll probably be able to tell. But it's always jab, jab, jab. And what gets you the knockout is the uppercut, right? The uppercut knocks them out. But the only way you can land this uppercut is with 3 left hands, 3 jabs, right? So this is your humor. This is your deep realization at the end. Jab, 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 humor, humor, humor whole time. When they least expect that, boom, uppercut, deep realization. What do you get? KO. You get an amazing story that moves your audience, that is memorable, that persuades them. That's what we want here. So we're contrasting this jab, this humor, with an uppercut, deep realization. That's how you get the KO. I hope you understand that. For me personally, I remember saying a story where I was talking about how my brother moved overseas. And yeah, it was funny the entire time, the airport, the inspection, the whatever, it was funny. It was really funny. And at the end of it, I say my deep realization, my uppercut. And I said something along the lines of, in the end, what hurt most wasn't letting go. It was about never getting the chance to say goodbye. That was the knockout. Because when you contrast that with an entire 5 minutes of humor, it's impossible for you not to win, for you not to have a story that lands. Does that make sense? So that's the base, the main principle, the main thing you want to focus on in your stories. All right. We know that storytelling is important. I'll make more videos saying how to write good stories. There's different techniques we use here: breadcrumb, hourglass, elephant. These are all different keywords from Matthew Dix's book, Storyworthy. If you want to go check that out, please do. You'll only benefit from it. But for now, to give you some value from this jab, 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 uppercut, that is the main principle in storytelling. Let me move over into Roman rhetoric. There are many different rhetorical devices here. I've studied, I've listened to lectures, I've watched TED Talks and watched YouTube videos on this. I've read books on this, like Elements of Eloquence by Mark Forsyth. I don't know how to say his British surname, but this is something I've studied and put effort into. And there are many different techniques, and I've made a bunch of notes on this. But I've found there are 3 rhetorical devices which are most effective. And I'll write them down because they're also quite important. And yes, I'll make future videos going into a bit more depth into what Roman rhetoric is, how you can apply it to your writing, to your speaking, to whatever it is that you want to, eloquentifies. I just made up a word there. Anything you want to make sound a bit more eloquent, you take Roman rhetoric and you add it to it, all right? So there's 3 main techniques here, or devices, which I just found myself using them the most, and they tend to be the most effective. They are anaphora, antithesis. I'll explain each one now. And groups of 3. All right, so anaphora. All that anaphora is the repetition of a word or phrase. And you've probably heard it in poetry or whatnot. But if we look at Martin Luther King's iconic I Have a Dream speech, he's taken the phrase I have a dream and he said it about 1 million times in his speech. But it's not boring, it's not repetitive, it's iconic. Anaphora. If we want people to remember something, all we have to do is repeat it enough times. All right? If you're gonna hype up your sports team, you're the captain and you have to hype everyone up before you go and play a rival team or whatnot. We are. There's gonna be some American frat scene from a movie. We are blank. We are blank. We are blank. You know, let's say, look, dude, we're not just any team. We're warriors. We're warriors. We're killers. We're Harvard High. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a very terrible example. But it can be applied to any playing field. All right, whether it's Martin Luther King or whether it's your Harvard High, lacrosse team, dude. Gnarly, bro. You know what I'm saying? Anaphora is very important. I find myself repeating certain phrases a lot of times in a speech. For example, same thing, same process or principle here. I realized it wasn't about soccer. It wasn't about time off. It was about spending quality time with my dad. Time where I didn't have to live up to someone else's expectations. Time where I could just be me. Right, so there's a combination of rhetorical devices there and presenting tips like pause and whatnot. But anaphora is what binds it all together. I realized it wasn't about this, it wasn't about that, it was about this. Right? And that's also a group of three. I found, I'll get back to antithesis, groups of three, groups of three, period, work. They stick better, they land better, they're more memorable. They stick better, they land better, they're more memorable. I've made a habit to, when I'm describing something, I'll use three adjectives for it. When I do anaphora, I'll make three sentences for it. Three lands better. All right, so instead of just saying, oh, it was a sunny day, you can say it was a sunny, brilliant, and bloody lovely day. I tell you that much. Or if you have my kind of weather right now, it was a cloudy, miserable, and gloomy day. So groups of three lands better, sticks better. Just take that whole idea of groups of three and just put it to whatever your argument is, whatever your concrete evidence is, whatever your article or your study is. All right? Boom. Antithesis. With antithesis or antithesis, it's two contrasting ideas. This one's really powerful. And if you can combine it with anaphora and a group of three, you have this insane lightsaber, dude. Okay? You have a purple one, a green one, and a red one. You know, what color does that even make? Who knows? But it bangs. It just slices through everything. You can combine these three, you have yourself some killer delivery there. What antithesis is you contrast two ideas: hot, cold, life, death, light, shadow, up, down, yes, no. All right? It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Okay, you can see this in Katy Perry's speech, or not speech, song. Cause you're hot, then you're cold, you're yes, then you're no, you're in, then you're out, you're up, then you're down. I'm no singer, so please forgive me for that. But you get the idea here. All right? That's what antithesis is. There is no life without death, no peace without war, no life, no light without shadow. You know what I'm saying? You can use that, and then you can transition into something, right? But always want to use rhetoric. So I remember using something along the lines of that. A boy had passed away, and I kind of had to raise the news or whatever. And I remember saying, there's no light without shadow, no something without something, no life without death. And today, it is with great sorrow that. And then I would obviously follow with the news. So yeah, I use rhetoric there to just make it sound a bit better, to make it a bit more eloquent. And so that's the structure to every speech, every delivery, every presentation. Always open up with storytelling, and with a story, focus on left, 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 uppercut, jab, 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 uppercut. Roman rhetoric, focus on these three devices, anaphora, antithesis, groups of three. Combine them all together, chef's kiss. There's other techniques like chiasma. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. It's when you take a sentence and you just flip it backwards. But that's a story for another day. Alrighty, now we move over into phase 3, which is actual presentation, delivery, execution, plating the dish, firing the bullet. Let's say present. Okay. For many people, this is the most difficult part. Presenting, speaking, delivering, standing in front of a crowd, up on stage, just you, time for you to speak. But this is a skill that can be learned and acquired by anyone. All that I am is I am the product of a few books which I've read, a few TED Talks, lectures, and YouTube videos. Someone who has taken that information, applied it, said a speech, failing, doing it again. Information, apply, say the speech, look at the reaction from the crowd, and then go back and do it again. And I've just kept doing that until the reaction from the crowd is good. Right? Because at the end of the day, you can think you're the best speaker in the world, but if people listen to your speech and everyone says, dude, that kind of sucked, you kind of sucked. You need the crowd. Like, how do you know if you said a good speech? You get a standing ovation, right? That's the point I'm making here. And I hope you understand that. So that's all I am. I'm not lucky to have been born speaking well. It's simply just information, apply it, say it, do it again. You know what I'm saying? It's a cycle. And so the same thing goes with presenting. If you practice it, you get better. If the next time you speak, you make one little tweak and you notice that it has X effect on your audience, good, you learn. And then the next time you speak, you try another technique and you see it has a negative effect on your audience, okay, we remove it. Speak again, new technique, positive, okay, we add it. And you just keep repeating that cycle. So all that presenting is you need to practice. You need practice, you need exposure to the cold, all right? You need exposure to this, or even heat, whatever it is. You need exposure because that builds tolerance. And you get a callus to it. You get used to feeling nervous, you get used to speaking when you're slightly unprepared, and you get better. You become a sharper, more confident and competent speaker. And I don't know if you noticed the group of 3 there, but yeah, I found with delivery, there are 2 main skills or characteristics of good speakers. And all you have to do is just copy these 2, improve these 2, and you'll immediately sound better. And of course, there's more stuff, but I don't want to make this video too long. I think it's already quite long. So the first thing is body language. And the second thing is silence. Okay? So with body language, look, someone who's confident looks and acts a certain way. Someone who is anxious, nervous, shy looks and acts a certain way. We're lucky because the audience doesn't know how we feel on the inside. They can only look at how we act and display our body, and from that they'll either think we're confident and prepared, or nervous, anxious, incompetent, right? And so all you and I have to do here is just take the confident, positive body language and do it, and mimic it, replicate it. And so the two main things I can give you here isn't necessarily, oh, stand up straight like Superman. I have a dream. No. I'll give you this now. And I don't know if you noticed it when I opened the video. You want two things. You want forward movement and you want open body language. So when you start speaking, you want to start with a step forward and you want to open up like this with your hands to your side. Not covering up, not protecting your neck and your organs because you're shy and a caveman. Open up because you're confident and you don't care, right? You own this room. So that's the main thing I can tell you about body language. Whenever you start speaking, one step forward, arms out. Even if you have flashcards or your phone or something to change the PowerPoint presentation, to your side. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Luca. Again, I'm in grade 7, 8 years ago, and I'm going to school that day with one thing on my mind. You know what I'm saying? Any story? What's another story I have? My parents and I are driving to watch my older brother compete in a water polo tournament. You know what I'm saying? So it's always arms out, step forward. That's the body language hack I can give you right now. There's other things in terms of posture, in terms of how you stand on one leg and whatnot, but I don't want to go into that right now. Silence. The best speakers, or what makes good speeches sound better, is silence. People who are more comfortable with standing there and just looking at their audience in the solitude, in quiet, that just makes them, it just screams confidence. When someone just stands there and speaks really fast and rambles like this and just talks blah, 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 it just shows that they're afraid of the moment. They're afraid of just standing there, owning it, with all eyes on them. The best speakers are very comfortable with silence. They control their pace, they speak how they want, and when they make a point, quiet. It's almost like when you say a point or your realization at the end of a story, when something's important and you have silence after it, it almost gives that point or realization time to dissolve or diffuse into the crowd. But if you keep speaking, you're kind of taking away and going back and building. But it's a no, that was a good point. You say it and you land on it, quiet, let that diffuse into your audience. In that moment, I realized, how did the speech go? In that moment, I realized greatness doesn't come with great responsibility. Great responsibility comes with greatness. Yup. Silence. You know what I'm saying? In that moment, I realized it wasn't about letting go. It was about never getting the chance to say goodbye. Silence. You know what I'm saying? The best speakers, arms out, step forward, and they're not afraid of silence. They use it to their advantage. And then they're very comfortable with it. All right? So if you're uncomfortable with it, all you have to do is practice. And you just need a bit more exposure to it. You simply just have to put yourself in the deep end 1 or 2 times, speaking, getting exposure to being in front of a crowd. And that's all it really takes. Or if you're a bit afraid of that for now, check the link in the description and I'll help you for free. We can improve on that, do some unprepared speaking. I'll help you write your speech, add rhetoric and storytelling techniques to it, whatever you want. Check the link in the description and I'll help you out. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. The before, during, and after phase of any speech. I hope this video isn't too long. I hope you can still get some value from it. And I hope that you have a better idea and understanding of what this whole speech delivery process looks like. And yeah, that's me, Luca Bazooka, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care.